As we begin, I'm going to take a moment to pray. Perhaps that's not your custom. You can continue to meditate with your breath and your body, or perhaps you'd like to read inspiring words from the back of the hymnal. Spirit of life, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this gathering. We thank you for the potential here, for the work that these particular individuals do, and for the heart that they bring. I pray that as we examine and explore this morning, you'd give us courage. We give thanks and say amen. Sometimes, and this is a side note. Are you ready for a side note? Yes. It's related to the sermon, so it's okay. Someone might say to me, Reverend Soto, why? Who are you asking for courage? The bottom line today is going to be that we are the ones that must give each other courage. So, there's your side note. The ideas of the sermon today are going to be contained in 3 I words. I'm going to give them to you up front. Imagining, inclining, and implementing. In February 2017, Merriam-Webster added over 1,000 words to the dictionary. One of them was pareidolia. It's the tendency to perceive a specific meaningful image in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. Reverend Soto, what the heck are you talking about? I'm about to tell you. As you're driving down Hammerberg Road, there are various billboards for Hurley Hospital. One of them is a picture of a few doctors gathered around an operating table and a surgical light. I'm not sure what association Hurley intended for this medical scene, but another image pops up in the negative space. It's the face of an angry monster. And the first couple of times I went by that billboard, I had to study it to see what the actual picture was. Like, certainly Hurley isn't trying to show me a monster, but my brain snapped to it so clearly that I had to figure it out. That's an example of pareidolia. The phenomenon of pareidolia and the nearby example of it are a reminder that our minds are at work with endless input, analysis, and conclusions. So how do you shift from constant analyzing to transformation? Transformation is a call to more than knowing. You know this for yourself. There are thousands of books you could buy that tell you how to be happy. None of these books on their own is likely to cause you to be significantly more happy than you are now. You also know how to beat procrastination. Do it now. Before another moment passes, go do the thing. That doesn't always help. You know what to do with money. Earn more, spend less. And what does that knowing actually get you? My friend Jack said that sometimes when we know the thing and we have to get our hearts to match, that knowing can be like a booby prize. Did you ever watch Let's Make a Deal?
Sure.
One time, I saw a lady win 7 30-gallon garbage cans labeled with the days of the week. That's the kind of prize we're talking about. Right? So, if we're going to focus beyond knowing, one of the connections between information and transformation is that imagining your imagination. That might be surprising. that imagining would have anything to do with transformative change. This is especially true for those of you who orient your actions toward results. You want to get from point A to point B? No problem. You know to go straight across. A lot of times this works. But what about when it doesn't? One of the complexities of being a human in transformation is that changing for growth has a before, a middle, and an after. And you know that in fact, transformation in our society is always set up with a before and after picture. But there's not usually a middle picture, which is why we need to dig in a little deeper. You are, in fact, built to do powerful imagining. Our brains have specific structures called mirror neurons, which are the reason that people have authentic emotional experiences upon witnessing art, such as plays and movies. Marco Iacoboni writes that mirror neurons in our brains recreate for us the distress that we see on the screen. We have empathy for the fictional characters. We know how they're feeling because we literally experience the same feelings for ourselves. And when we watch the movie stars kiss on the screen, some of the cells in our brains are the same ones that fire when we kiss our lovers. Vicarious is not a strong enough word to describe the effect of these powerful mirror neurons. So what's the point of this powerful imagining? While people often consider unity a desirable goal, one of the things that keeps people from achieving it is the multiplicity of experiences that arise, even in communities in which some of the members may have some similar experiences. Charles Taylor explains that a modern social imaginary is not a set of ideas. Rather, it is what enables, through making sense of, the practices of a society. Taylor is talking about the way that we imagine society working together, both on large levels and small ones. The framework that we use to make sense of society starts often with natural law, including the ideas of Grotius, the Dutch legal scholar. He used the framework of natural law, or the idea that human beings are rational, sociable agents who are meant to collaborate in peace to their mutual benefit. Grotius could not imagine that white fascism would be the bacteria by which militant white racism would infect the American political system. Grotius did not have any way to predict that white fascists would march through the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia, carrying citronella torches and shouting "blood and soil," a slogan recycled from Nazi Germany that underscores that German land is connected, perhaps mystically, to German blood. Except that this isn't Germany, nor should it be. Grotius neither could imagine that you would be here now, that you would take these and other words and actions seriously, or that you would rise up to oppose them, even when it is difficult, even when it is awkward, and even when victory is not assured. For those of you who work with dedication and determination for the good of this community, imagination is a powerful step, both in transforming yourself and in transforming our shared world. For this journey, I want to offer you an important tool. In difficult times like these, you may encounter perspectives that spring from fear or from lack of understanding difference. We will encounter these things to which we must say no, absolutely not. In the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, we are not to simply bandage the wounds of victims beneath the wheel of injustice. we are to drive a spoke into the wheel itself. But for other times, when you are working together and it is sometimes uncomfortable, I want you to remember the story of Emma McElroy. Now look, sometimes people want a sermon to take them down incredible trails of intellectual thought where they can weigh the pros and cons of a thing and really enjoy the academics of it. But today, I want you to think about those mirror neurons. I want you to think about the capacity of your imagination. And when I'm telling you about Emma, I don't want you to be weighing pros and cons. I want you to think about her experience. You might choose not to, and in the end not have many pros and cons to weigh. I understand that's your choice. And I really think that one of the ways that we can build our skills is by using more than one kind of skill. So let me tell you a little bit about Emma. When Emma was 7, she was super into dinosaurs. So her mother took her to the beach. They lived in Ireland. And Emma found a particular rock about an hour after they'd been at the beach. And she said, "Mom, this is the foot of a woolly mammoth." And her mom could have said, "Emma, woolly mammoths are huge. This is a small rock. I think you might be mistaken about the nature of this rock. You know, if this is a mammoth foot, it's a very small mammoth, and that's like, not what we should be expecting." She could have said that. But instead, what Emma's mother said was, "Yeah, maybe." She said, "Why don't we go ask the experts at the museum?" So they went to the museum, and they took the rock, and Emma explained that she thought it was the foot of a woolly mammoth. And then she says they went home for tea like a good Irish family. And the next day, the director of the paleontology department called. And what he said was, it wasn't the foot of a woolly mammoth. But what it was an ichthyosaurus skull, a prehistoric dolphin from the Jurassic period, the best specimen ever found in Ireland. So from that story, Emma goes on to start a women's clothing company that allows women to wear whatever they want. It has lots of different shapes, including tomboy shapes and other shapes that aren't easy to find in stores. And when they took their first sign-ups, 22,000 women signed up for those clothes without Emma's company, Wild Fang, spending 1 cent on advertising. So when Emma talks about this particular skill, what she's talking about is the ability to say, yeah, maybe. When you come here, when you're in this community, most of the time, you are not going to be fighting people on the other side of an ideological line. There's not going to be anything wrong, but there might be some things different. So most of the time, you can bust out your, yeah, maybe we can. And it will bring you forward in using your imagination. Does that make sense? All right. So the next part of this transformation cycle. 1 second. Is inclining. I picked it because it was an eye. But really what I'm going to tell you about is, at first I didn't want to talk about this. I said, oh, Reverend Sean, that's so played out. Everyone's heard of that thing. He said, no, but not the special part. And the special part is the part in the middle. Remember I told you transformation has a beginning, a middle, and an end? Okay, so here is what I want you to know about the middle part. In order to stop operating in the past and begin operating in the future, right? That forward movement, part of the way that we find it difficult is that we have to do some letting go. So we talk a lot about caterpillars, right? Because they're green and shiny and happy and chompy. And then they have to get into that chrysalis, which we assume is dark in there. And the caterpillar doesn't die. So calling it death would be misstating what's going on. But it does change. In fact, the caterpillar all along has had cells in its body called imaginal cells. And those are the cells that have specific butterfly instructions. So, at first there's caterpillar, 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 then a chrysalis, and then the cells disorganize from what they used to be. And Reverend Sean made me laugh because he called it a particular thing. Are you ready? He called it a bag of goo. That's right, though, right? When the caterpillar comes undone, there's a moment at which you have a bag of goo. And the reason that term is even useful is that when we are in the middle of transformation, it sometimes feels pretty messy. Do you relate to that? You have good feelings about moving forward, but you were fine where you were, and it's a lot of work, and so those imaginal cells are the same things that you carry inside you that point you in forward directions. Some of those are around your values and your principles, right? You move forward toward the truth because the truth will set you free. You move forward toward community because you help others be their best. They help you be your best. Those are the things that are inside you, waiting to be expressed not just in the now, but also in the next. And so, some of the time, it means letting go of some of the things so that you can embrace the next thing. It's hard, though. It's hard. And some of what's hard about letting go is that it requires some saying goodbye. And who likes that? I'll tell you. I'm an Army kid. So I don't mind saying goodbye because then I have a chance to really say to someone, hey, I'm really glad that you were here today, and now I'm going. I'm really glad I got to live here in this year with you, and now it's time for me to go. I really appreciate your gifts. And so maybe one of the things that helps us transition is when we embrace the gifts of the past so that we can carry them into the future. All of it requires some nimbleness. There's not like a magical key that we can turn and now change is easy and quick. Does that make sense? So you pick and choose what's going to comfort you as you move forward. When there's Nazis in the streets, you pick and choose how you will be heard, how you will be seen, and how you will be represented. And maybe what people have been doing is going to have to say, we're going to give that another turn another time. And right now, we're going to say, yeah, maybe, to as many things that embrace the future as possible. as an option, right? No one's going to make you live into a future that has love and power and energy. That's not how that works. You have to bring yourself to that future. But if you don't choose it, if you keep doing what you already do, you'll get what you've already. Right? And that's not a punishment. If you like eating the same thing every day for breakfast, you're allowed. Right? It's kind of that. Right? So one of the things we have to be honest about is where we are. Are we in the beginning of transformation? Are we in the middle of transformation? Are we in the final stage? So for the final stage, we said implementing is part of it. Again, I'm going to give you a piece of information that's not about pros and cons, but about using your mirror neurons to imagine. There is a part in Colombia called Magdalena, and that's where FARC hangs out. Those are the revolutionary forces. They're guerrillas, they're armed, and they fight the Colombian government, mostly for land, mostly for the opportunity to pass drugs through the area, and also just power. They mean to terrorize the people in that place. And as upsetting as it may be to hear people talk about all sides of anger in the United States, in Colombia, that represents the situation because there's the government, there's the rebel forces, there's private armies, and there's citizens. And so sometimes the paramilitary will go into the villages and say, all right, well, you have an option. You can either join us or stay silent about everything we do. And if you talk about it, then you'll die. Right? So it's not really a choice. But one day, that happened in the village. I'm going to read you a statement from Josue, one of the farmers there, because it shows us that implementing of imagination, we never know where it will end. He said, "You want to give us millions of weapons paid for by the state, yet you will not facilitate even the minimum credit for our farming needs. There are millions for war, but nothing for peace. You, as members of the National Army, instead of racing us to kill each other, should do your job according to the national constitution. That is, you should defend the Colombian people. Look at all these people you brought here. We all know each other. And who are you? We know that some years ago you yourself were with the guerrillas, and now you are head of the paramilitaries. You brought people into our houses to accuse us. You lied and you switched sides, and now you, a side switcher, want us to follow you in your violent example. Captain, with all due respect, we do not plan to join your side, their side, or any side, and we are not leaving this place. We are going to find our own solution. We are facing a time in which we may need to find our own solution. I know that together you have the values, the skills, and the interests to do that. You might be in the middle of change, and it might be awkward and uncomfortable and messy, but together you can do it.